Hi, my name is Neha Das. I'm a rising senior chemistry major, and I've been peer mentoring for 3 semesters now. I started off mentoring for Chem 102, and I currently mentor for organic chemistry 2. I've been doing that for a year. I hope to continue being a peer mentor or learning assistant because not only has it allowed me to help others, other students, it's also benefited my own skills and understanding. So obviously you get to help people, and it's great seeing that, and it's great being one of the resources students have and succeeding, but also I've learned how to teach better. And not only that, I've also learned the course material better. Teaching it to someone else really helps you solidify your understanding of the subject. So being a peer mentor or learning assistant is great all around. One tip I have given to students and will keep giving to develop better study habits is to study a little bit every day. With a course as complicated as Organic Chemistry 2 and all chemistry courses that are complicated, it's important to stay on top of your work and do a little bit every day. This makes sure you're really understanding the content. You have questions as the content comes up and you can ask them. You won't feel overwhelmed in the end or have to cram, and it's just an overall great way of studying and chunking and spacing out your work to ensure the most success. The course I hope to peer mentor is Chem 262, so I've chosen a problem from that course, and specifically I've chosen a synthesis problem because this is easily one of the most difficult topics in organic chemistry, and having a systematic way of solving it really helps make it better and less scary. So the first thing I do is synthesis and see what's conserved between the reactants and the products. For this example, we can see that it's the benzene ring. And then the products, 2 substituents are added on to this benzene ring. So we think EAS because we have an aromatic ring and we have substituents added onto it. And with EAS, it's really important to see the relationship between the substituents. And between these 2 substituents, we know that they are meta to each other. This is important because the substituents, as is how they are on the product right now, neither of them are meta directors. So this should clue us into thinking, okay, one of these substituents was probably a meta director at first, the other one was added on, and then the original one was converted to its final form. It's likely not the chlorine because if we're thinking EAS, halogenation, it's added in one step, so it's not going to be a meta director first and then convert into chlorine. Chlorine just gets directly added. So we're focusing on this substituent right here then. So how is this formed from a meta director? So biggest thing is looking at the double bond, because there's very few ways double bonds are formed from the reactions we know in Orgo 2. And the biggest thing that comes to mind is Wittig reaction. So for this, we need a ketone or aldehyde, and we need a phosphonium ylide. So we would need something like this. To get the double bond in the right spot and in the product. And this checks off all our boxes. The ketone is an electron withdrawing group. It's a meta director. So if we had that, we could add the chlorine meta. So that's great. We have the last step in our synthesis. So now let's kind of work forwards. We worked backwards. Now let's try to get to that point. So how do we get a ketone substituent added on to a benzene ring? So we're thinking EAS, and a way to add a ketone through EAS is Friedel-Crafts acylation, where you have an acid chloride, AlCl3. And the acid chloride would have the same number of carbons, so it would look like this. And then we have AlCl3, and then we have an H2O workup. Do not forget the workup that is needed to remove the complex. So this allows us to add a ketone with the same number of carbons onto the benzene ring. There we go. And now we have the meta director needed to add the chlorine meta. So we do this through another EAS reaction. This is halogenation. You would get this intermediate. And now the final step is something we already talked about, turning this ketone into having a double bond. And this is the Wittig reaction that we discussed before, and we already have the reagent selected for it. And now the synthesis is complete. So there you can see how we broke down this complex synthesis into a series of steps, working backwards at first and then seeing what we need to get to that point. And it's really a lot more clearer than it was at first.